Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jacob, joined as always by Carver. Things got a little busy. Took a week off. Maybe not the best time because Dortmund's still cruising. So we didn't do an episode after the 4-0 win away at Wolfsburg. We are going to touch on that match for a little bit. And of course, mainly reviewing the away win at Leverkusen the last month or month and a half as we were looking at the final run in the season. Like, this was the tough one, right? Like, if we want to be serious, we got to win all the other ones. We have to. And this one was the one where we're kind of thinking if we can get a draw, that's great. Of course, Bayern Munich was in there too. But we freaking did it. We got the win away at Leverkusen. We're in Europe. Didn't think that was going to happen. Champions League is still possible. We need a little bit of help there. But I mean, yeah, Dortmund's been cruising. But before we get into everything, Carver, just how are things going? How are you doing, man?
This time it's
open. You didn't even tell me. I'm not even prepared. I just have this giant water cup.
It's just juice. This time it's a celebratory pop. Usually we're doing it when we're pretty depressed, but I'm popping it, and so I can bust my chops here. I'm doing all right. These two games were true structure tests. I mean, Wolfsburg too, even though we caught them at a pretty good time, they were in pretty bad form ending the season here as two tough oppositions, and we got the job done. And also the women's team secured the championship in the Verbandsliga and will be promoted as well. So it's a great weekend to be, really last 2 weeks to be a Dortmund fan.
Yeah, last week we touched on the women. I mean, we've been given some more updates about them lately. We always like to give periodic updates on how they're doing. And we touched on, because they had the Riviera Derby last week against Schalke. They've been in the same division, which is really exciting. So, and that was a really meaningful game anyways, because they were pretty tight in the table. And they got the win. I said last week, I think a couple weeks ago, they got that win when we last hit on it, and now officially promoted. Is this their third straight promotion? Do you know? Can't remember.
Oh God, I'm forgetting. I want to say it's their third,
probably.
But
third.
they are currently in the fourth division, the Verbandsliga, and being promoted to the third. So there's probably a number mix up there somewhere and how many times they've been promoted, and we should know at this point. But either way, they've had a few in a row. Yeah.
And if you don't already, you gotta follow the BVB. I think it's BVB 09 Frauen, or it might just be BVB Frauen on Instagrams, where they do most of their updates. But it's been so cool. We touched on it so many times, but like seeing this team grow, like start from ground zero, and mainly like the support they've been getting at the matches and the support they got in the crowd at the Riviera Derby was so awesome to see. And it's so cool to just see this continued growth with this team. Yeah. So if you don't already, give them a follow. Also, shout out our Discord right now. If you're not already part of the Discord, you can join in the description of this episode. We should probably, I don't know. I don't think if you're watching the live stream, probably don't have the link there, but we'll have that in the episode notes later on in the show. If you're looking back, join our Discord. This is a way to connect with us throughout the match week. Throughout the match day while the men or women are playing. Also, we have a little BVB Frauen channel in there too to get some updates. But yeah, it's been really excited to see their growth. And yeah, exciting on the men's side too. We used to say, I mean, it's always a roller coaster with the men's team, but sometimes we will say when things are really bad, just go watch BVB Frauen because they're always flying. But now Dortmund men are on quite an exciting run too as we hit on with Wolfsburg. But let's get into that match a little bit. If you're ready, we'll start with the lineup. And I mean, it's been scored another four goals since that Wolfsburg match, so it won't be a full in-depth review. But Guirassy got a brace, Adeyemi got a brace off the bench. But yeah, starting in goal, Kobel, with our back three of Sula, Anton, and Benzabaini. Rierson, right wing back with Mecha and Gross in the midfield. Svensson on the left, Brandt and Gittens getting the start with Guirassy up top. What are your thoughts? First thoughts.
It's pretty standard at this point. Kovac really sticking to a system that has benefited a lot of players and above all else gotten results, gotten us to fifth place here with Wolfsburg, and now of course a very similar system, structure, and lineup to Wolfsburg here. And on the flip side of that, for Wolfsburg, their top scorer Amora was not starting after an altercation that he had with another player in training. The small quote their coach Hasenhüttl had on it was saying these things happen from time to time in football. One of them was the aggressor and went too far. They're talking to one another again and shook hands in front of the team today. But nevertheless, Wolfsburg were already struggling for form, and now they're missing their top goal scorer against an opposition like Dortmund, who usually we perform pretty well against them, especially at home here. And I think we won like 3 of our last 3 matches at home, as opposed to before that, we've either drawn a few or lost a few. So we're finding the form again back at home, and What a great time to do that, to get it right at the tail end of the season here.
Yeah, we've had, looking back the last couple of seasons, I mean, we've had a 6-1 win over them, a 6-0 win. These all come pretty late in the season too, so it seems like, I mean, yeah, they knocked us out of the Pokal, which is unfortunate. But if we get Wolfsburg at home late in the season, we can usually smack them up pretty good. And yeah, that's what we see in this one with the 4-0 win. I did have I believe this was after the Leverkusen match, but I saw a post-match quote from Adeyemi, which I thought was just really interesting. And I mean, it kind of, again, it was after Leverkusen, but I think even as we get into both these matches, it still really stands out. But the quote from him was, "I never doubted that we would make it to Europe. I'm not surprised we're playing well and winning in that after such turmoil. Niko Kovac has kicked our ass since he arrived. He told us that we have to run a lot against every opponent." And I mean, we're seeing that. Like we knew that Kovac has stepped in and like with his attitude and really put a shift in mentality, but to hear it and to hear kind of like the positivity out of it too, like to bring up the word turmoil, I think is like, I'm glad that he said it. I'm glad that it was addressed. And we've said that I hope he's like kicking their ass, and just to hear that straight from Adeyemi, and yeah, and that's what we've been seeing on the pitch, right? Like we're really seeing that mentality shift, and yeah, it's great to see.
Yeah, and you're seeing that physically too, not only with the eye test, but we talked about the numbers before. The distance covered amongst the team has shifted dramatically, increased dramatically for the last few months that Kovac has been here. And you also have the extra motivational factor of, again, another opposition that's been formally coached by Kovac. So there's some emotional battles going on within the war there, and that obviously took the team to the next level. And just to reemphasize the point we were talking earlier about constantly performing against Wolfsburg, I have a stat here too that of our last 7 home games against Wolfsburg, we won all of them, scoring 24 goals in those 7 and only conceding 1. So it's usually a party whenever playing against Wolfsburg at home. And yeah, the mentality shift amongst these players has been no different. It also helps to get up against Wolfsburg really early on too, right? I mean, it's a fortunate touch from Brandt, and the cross comes in, but it sets up Gersi perfectly, who had a very cool and collected finish from him early on. And I think that goal, if I'm not wrong, that put him with more goals than he scored with Stuttgart last year already, which is crazy because he had 8 more goals in the Bundesliga last year, but just it balances out with him being in the Champions League and getting 13, I think it was. I mean, the man's clearly on ending the season on fire here, and I just wanted to touch on that finish. It looks easy, but to set off the goalkeeper that quick and then just be able to pass it into the net for a goal early on is no easy task.
Yeah, and I mean, the importance of getting a goal early, I think with the form we've been on, this is a match at home, and to just like, I think there's always been a little bit of a worry, like starting every match, because it's like we have been doing so well, and I think we're just used to seeing it fall apart at some point, or we're used to seeing some kind of stumble. So to just set the nerves right off the bat, and especially at home, because we know how important the fans are, and we know how like amazing the fans are and how much support they can give to the guys. So to like you said, it's always a party when we play Wolfsburg at home, but to get that party started early, unfortunately, we didn't bang it anymore until what was his second goal was the 59th.
Yeah, just before the hour. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, well, Dortmund were mostly controlling the game, the remaining of that first half, but just didn't remain threatening in front of goal. And I think there was also some the pulling back from Wolfsburg in the sense that Patrick Wimmer was able to pull them forward in transition and catch Dortmund in some of those defensive lapses. I told Chaz when I was watching the game with him, I've always been actually a pretty big fan of Wimmer. Reminds me similar of Sancho in the sense that he can work in tight areas really well and maintain ball possession and pick out a really solid pass. And that's what he did here to get Wolfsburg up the field. But I think they only generated what I've seen some sources say no shots and then 1 shot on target across the 90 minutes, as well as only producing one open play effort from inside the box across that whole game.
I saw 2 shots on target from what I'm seeing on FOTMOB, but
I think the Dortmund site said 0 too. So weird. All over the place.
The Dortmund site would be biased.
I don't know why I can't remember it either. I should have just watched that part again. But
shout out to X Striker who's in the chat with a comment saying BVB going from 12th to 4th isn't being talked about enough. We're in 5th. We're not quite there yet, but I do like. I mean, we've been talking about it. I know there's other Bundesliga pundits and commentators who maybe aren't talking about it enough, but I mean, just not too long ago, I was like, there's no way we're even making Europe. Like I thought at best we were going to finish 10th, and Yeah, we just been on such a good run coming off that international break, and it's we took a break after the Wolfsburg match, not mainly because we were both busy and just didn't quite have the time to do an episode, but it was not too long ago that we also took a break just for our mental health, because we didn't want to talk about another game, because we we're like, well, I can't do this anymore. I was like, how do podcasts who cover just like mid-table and like constantly relegated teams continue? Because there's only so much I can stay with, and now we're just flying. Now I'm so happy to do an episode.
Yeah, who would have thought? I did want to bring it back to that second goal when we talked about right in the 59th minute, just before the hour mark, that gross turn. It was indeed gross. I mean, it's just, I know it's like his trademark move, but it's crazy just how easy he makes it look and just slick he can make it look and cook really anyone any opposition that they come across, and that was able to pick out Gersi, who again has another great finish there. And Wolfsburg they already had a mountain to climb here, and it was going to take a while for them to get back. But overall, pretty solid performance here. I had a few other quotes from people after the game, but did you have any other thoughts from this one?
I did. Maybe we talked about this in Leverkusen too, but I want to touch just like, I guess, substitutions and rotating, maybe less substitutions and more squad rotation, because we're in a period where like maybe you're not rotating for like fitness reasons, but having Adeyemi not start and then come off the bench and get a brace, like what we saw with him kind of drop Brandt earlier or a few weeks ago, maybe too. And now I just feel like he's done Kovac has done such a good job of getting the best out of these players and knowing exactly what to do with them. And strangely, like Chukwuemeka, we don't see in the Leverkusen match at all, and we know like what he can do. Was it the Mainz match where he, I think, set up 2 or 3 goals, got his first goal? Like we've seen him in these moments, and we're almost like calling for him more. And yet
he only played 8 minutes in the Wolfsburg match too.
Yeah,
as much as I really want us to get like him as a permanent signing, it does make me a little nervous that he's played such little football. So I mean, he impacts the game with such little minutes, but at the same time, 8 minutes for Wolfsburg, and then he wasn't even in the squad for Leverkusen,
And we're still getting these.
He's been recovering for 5 months almost.
And we're still getting these results, right? Like we saw some of these moments thinking like, oh, thank God Chukwuemeka is here and he can save us, and you can just drop Brandt and play him. We're calling for that a little bit, but it's like we're not even using him, and maybe we don't need him. Maybe we don't need to spend that money to get him here next summer. Like he's been good in these moments, but like Kovac is still figuring out ways to get the best out of the players. I know Gittens got to start this last match, and then we see Adeyemi come on and get the brace, but I think you're just seeing that this kind of rotation and managing players behind the scenes is really showing up on the pitch as well.
Yeah, I didn't know at first if, Kovac was just favoring Brandt because of seniority and he's held the captain's armband, because there were a few games a few weeks ago where I was like, Chukwuemeka is the one that's really been, 10 times more effective than Brandt for several weeks. And it was like the games like the Hoffenheim game beforehand, I was like, Chukwuemeka should have been starting that game. And Brandt, of course, goes on to score that worldie, and he's been picking up some great form since. But I'm wondering now, is that maybe necessarily like a Kovac favoring him, or maybe it was just a fitness thing too, because again, Chukwuemeka has not played a lot, and still he's not starting a lot either. So I know the team's being cautious, but also now it's just making me a bit cautious as well. I did have one quote from here, Kovac, that the first half wasn't great for Wolfsburg. We took the lead after 3 minutes, but we lacked aggression. We played too slowly, too ponderously, lacked some depth. We constantly played for the middle.
You're back.
Sorry about
that. I realized I was trying to talk back to you, and I was muted the whole time, so you probably couldn't hear me. But that's just because I was muted.
What a train wreck. To hell with the quote. He was just talking about the persistence of the club. We're doing great, everyone. That's the quote. That'll be fun to edit and throw in there.
All right. Let's move on to Leverkusen. As we mentioned, there's the Bayern match, and this was the other tough one where if we really want to make Champions League, if we want to make it in Europe, we really needed something out of this one.
Said Bayern
it's going to be tough. What?
Said Bayern match.
I said that along with this one were the tough ones.
Oh, okay. Sorry. They're talking about the Leverkusen one. My fault.
Carver can't come back on the show. No, this was the tough one. This was the one we needed a result in, and we were able to do it. Shout out to Hamza in the chat, saving the day, giving me something else to talk about besides how Carver's butchering the show. Says, hopefully Dortmund doesn't underestimate Holstein Kiel. They have nothing to play for. And yeah, we have kind of everything to play for.
Right.
But yeah, we were able to get the result. I think this gives us a lot of confidence. I think it's we've been flying. Like, we know the mission. Like, there is a benefit to having this underdog mentality. Like, that's kind of a, I don't want to say safe space, but it is a good place to be in when you know you have something, like you have so much to fight for. Because I don't want to get too carried away and say Kovac stays at this rate. I do want Kovac to stay, but Kovac stays, and who knows, we could still have a poor start to next season. Like, I don't want to get too far ahead of us, but we're doing such a good job right now. And I think it's more up to, I don't want to jinx it, but I think it's more up to that Frankfurt and Freiburg match to see if we make Champions League or not. But yeah, this was the big one. It was away, and end up getting the result with 4 different goal scorers, even though we go down. But let's start with the lineup, back up a little bit. Pretty similar to the Wolfsburg match. Kobel in goal, Benzabaini, a left-sided center back with Anton in the middle, and Sula. I was going to hit on it in the last match too, but I mean, it kind of rounds out both episodes. How concerned were we when Schlotterbeck went out for the rest of the season?
I mean, obviously, everyone was pretty terrified. But again, good on Kovac for finding a system that actually makes us look very defensively solid. I mean, there were tons of moments that Leverkusen got looks on goal at this first half, and Kobel had to dance on his head. But still, for the most part, this team looks so much more stable across the board this spring under this new system. So
I think that played a lot into me thinking we were not going to make Europe with the news of Nico Schlotterbeck going out.
Yeah, it's fair.
Running through the rest of the lineups, Finson, left-sided wingback, Mecha comes into this. I guess he played, Mecha and Gross with Rierson. Oh my God. Rierson on the right, Adeyemi and Brandt in those 2 advanced attacking mid positions, and Girassi up top. So pretty similar, just had Adeyemi getting the start over Gittens with, I mean, he gets a brace in the last game. I think he kind of deserves it. So
Adeyemi's been picking up for him too, so that makes total sense. I would have started him as well. I would have started JG less, even though he hasn't been starting a lot. But yeah, unlike Wolfsburg, Leverkusen did actually have something to play for here. It was obviously the last home game for people like Xabi Alonso, a head coach who's very likely off to Madrid. And you have Wirtz, who's out the door for Leverkusen, probably going to Bayern. And of course, just still wanted to rack up a few more points and end the season strong, because they've only lost 2 games before us, right? Before this. So they've been very, very solid across the board this second season. Surprisingly, everyone thought they were going to drop off a bit. And there were moments, sure, but they still ended second. And they came out really strong in the first half here. Like I said, a lot of shots on goal. Dortmund and across this whole game had 42 clearances. They were completely offensively non-existent most of that first half. It wasn't until that break where you really start to see the big step forward and push on. But those are some really, really nervy moments, whether from Kobel having these heroic saves or also the crossbar saving our ass too.
Kobel in the first half had 6 saves. I think it was 8 total throughout the match, but 6 in the first half. We were definitely under pressure. It was nice seeing, not saying it's nice being under so much pressure, but nice seeing Kobel just do his normal Kobel things that we're used to seeing on so many occasions. They do get a goal first, and I don't remember the exact time, but I know like Benzabaini had some really great tackles too. There was the one in the originally called a penalty. Ends up getting overturned because it was just a phenomenal tackle. It gets the ball first, like without a doubt. Benzabaini was great. But yeah, Kobel, I do want to ask on Kobel. I think we touched on this in the last episode, but it's been a couple of weeks and things change. So I just like asking again. And while we have you in the chat, chime in with your opinions too, because I know there was when things were pretty low not too long ago and we were looking pretty bad and didn't look like we were going to make Europe. A lot more talk and discussion about Kobel moving on in the summer and him not being happy, which is understandable. Like, he's a top goalkeeper, should be playing in the Champions League. I know he has committed to Dortmund and he says how much he loves it, but I do understand like this bit of frustration if things aren't going well and if the club doesn't look like they're taking things seriously and want to move in the right direction. But luckily we've turned that around. All the talk before was Kobel out in the summer. Do you think us getting, I don't even want to say Champions League, just Europe in general, even if it is Europa League, do you think that changes anything for him staying? Carver, get your take. But if anyone wants to chime in the chat, let us know what you think. Does Kobel stay next season with just Europe, or is there still a chance he is out?
I think there's definitely still a chance he's out if we make Europa League. I think it really just depends on the talks that the club and his party has for these next 3 weeks. I mean, we're already mid-May, so we're coming close to the end of the season, obviously, and you're going to hear more answers for that soon. So I mean, we just got to hope we can make Champions League. Everyone's got to pull their weight. It just has to happen. It's not in our hands, but it basically is in our hands at this point. We couldn't have had a more favorable draw. One of the worst teams in the league at home, and then the team in front of you are playing the team in third. And of course, they could easily end up putting us in a position where we could still be Champions League. So I'm thinking about that first and foremost, and kind of taking it day by day there. But if we only end up just solidifying fifth, it depends what, I guess, the plans are for the club. I mean, they're probably going to have their pitch for him. And if it's not enough for him, then it sucks, because obviously you want him here a while, but we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, he doesn't want to go to Chelsea. No one wants to go to Chelsea. God, what a terrible place.
I totally agree.
I also wanted to touch on just more lineup before we really get in the match in general too, but because we talked about Brandt getting dropped recently and then now coming into form and having some really good matches, but also him getting the captain's armband in this one. And I mean, talking about Kobel reminded me of that, but I know like Kobel was the assistant captain or vice captain, I guess, not this season. I know they kind of took that responsibility off his shoulders, so he could just kind of focus on playing a little more. But obviously Chan has been on the bench the last couple of matches. But yeah, your thoughts on Brandt getting dropped, but then coming back into the team and getting the responsibility of the captain's armband?
I mean, he's been effective. He's still had the same problems that we've seen all season, but he's actually contributing a lot more. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but he's had a handful of goals and a handful of assists in just these last few games alone. And he's got the right mentality in a lot of moments to continue pulling this team over the line here. He mentioned at the end of the game that we had a lot of luck in the first half and a lot of Gregor Kobel. It was good that we quickly equalized after going 1-0 down, and we didn't have many chances, but we did take advantage of them and showed killer qualities. And you see that really this whole game really with how effective we were in front of goal, unlike Leverkusen. Yeah, you could, I guess, chalk it up to luck, but it also at the end of the day, also at the end of the season, you need to be putting away the chances that you're actually generating, and Dortmund did just that. I mean, with Rierson's goal too, I mean, how many times has he gotten on the end of one of those shots? Same kind of shot he had against Munich just last year. And, this team, whenever they are on it, they can put away those chances.
Yeah. And we could have the same discussion about Brandt and his role in next season. And I don't know, like it might hinge on how
I still don't think it's enough, but
no, I mean, there's only one game
send
left.
Off and he's showing a lot of maturity, which I really do appreciate. I mean, it should be the bare minimum, but I really do appreciate him bringing us all, again, hopefully over the line here towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, in just one game left. I don't know if I can. We're going to do, I should preface this by saying we're not going to get into a ton of transfers and movement stuff in this episode. We will do that probably after the final. I don't know if it'll be the recapping the final match day of the season, but we'll definitely have like some summer episodes where we get into all that. And we'll do it fairly soon. Like we won't just like dish off for a month and then come back later. Like we're going to get into all that stuff and really evaluate the squad and what we want to see moving forward. Give some thoughts on that. But as you mentioned, just coming back to the squad, kind of taking responsibility and leading. Like, I don't know who else. There are some other guys I think you could give the captain's armband in this lineup, but not guys who have been around as long. Like, I could be fine with Gross taking the armband, even Anton. But, I mean, obviously those guys haven't been around as long enough. So I don't mind. I'm fine with Brandt taking it. And like we said, he's been performing. And as you said, like, get into the goals and everything. We already touched on Branson and Rierson's, but just this full team performance and the mentality, like we've hit on so many times, to be under so much pressure, to go down and then immediately score just a few minutes after that. Because again, I go to a dark place before Dortmund really starts. And then if we're facing a team like Leverkusen and they go up and it's their send-off party for Alonso, like I'm like, oh no, things aren't looking great. But Dortmund doesn't care. It seems like the only thing they care about right now is actually making Champions League, and that's what they're aiming to do.
Yeah. And I do want to touch on too, whenever we go up 2-1 going into halftime again without generating much of any chances, we were clinical in the ones that we did make. And I wanted to praise Kovac for the proactive changes that he made here. Took off Mecha and brought on Sabitzer, who didn't have like a phenomenal game by any means, but he did recover the ball that led to our third goal. I thought he brought a control into the game. And then also Kovac mentioned him here too in the press conference, or excuse me, just after the game, and talking about the switch from the 5-4-1 to the 5-3-2 in the first half. And with Sabitzer's substitution, we had more composure in the game and we controlled it. Top teams don't need many chances, and top players score when they get them. I demand that we approach every game as if it were a Champions League match. So it's at least good to get Sabitzer some minutes again against really top opposition and hold his own for the most part, because Mecha, I know, has been kind of coming back into fitness and trying to find his form again that we've seen bigger glimpses of this season. And overall, I thought Sabitzer pretty decent again, and brought us into the third goal.
Yeah, I mean, I said Sabitzer was pretty similar to like almost what I saw from Mecha in the first half. I didn't, and that wasn't a ton where I feel like I didn't even notice Mecha on the pitch in the first half, which have kind of been some complaints before. I've always complained about anytime he has a horrible giveaway or just tries a spin move right into a defender. But I would say that was a while ago. Like I do
He only had 18
say
touches.
before the injury, I would say Mecha was looking really good at the start of the season. I'm not trying to rag on him right now, but I don't think this was his best game. Obviously, he gets pulled. Sabitzer, I think, kind of similar, was also just there and around things. But I also think Gross is giving a little more like going forward, and they're just a little more defensive and holding a bit. But we create that goal, right? And that third goal, I think about that time, I was almost looking for a sub and a change. And in our Discord, we were chatting. A couple of people said maybe you get Girassi off because he hasn't scored or really done anything yet. And I was like, I think if you freshen up the people around him, maybe he could still bag a brace. And my thought was maybe you pull Brandt or Adeyemi, and the next thing you know, they link up to get that goal. And then we do make the subs, and then Girassi gets his goal later on too.
Yeah. He's been really clinical, and he's been pretty clinical the whole season, but he's really ramped it up towards the end of this season. And it shows that he's now gone and scored more goals than under his last year at Stuttgart. And I'm excited to see what he can do next year with even more quality around him, as not only we make summer signings, particularly behind him at that number 10 role, but also just getting more stability around him as well, with the likes of Bayer coming back and seeing what future holds for the wings and what our defense looks like as well, so he doesn't have to drop back as much, I guess.
Do you have anything else specifically from this game before we look forward a little bit?
Not really, no. Yeah, really mature performance overall. It wasn't the prettiest, but rarely do we get a win away, and of course it's against a side like Leverkusen. I would have never dreamt of something like this, and now that's undefeated in 7 or 8 games now in a row. We're really finishing the season strong, and really deservedly so to be in this position. I know that we've been horrendous most of it, but getting the job done at the end of the day, and that's really all that matters.
So coming up on the weekend are home. I can't find. I do not have the match pulled up. We are home, so finishing at home, and luckily it's not against Mainz. We already took her business against Mainz a while back, but it is home hosting Holstein Kiel. Every match this weekend, I believe, kicks off at the same time. Saturday, kicking off at 9:30 Eastern time, 8:30 Central time, where we are. Yeah, and looking at the table, so we sit 5th on 54 points, 1 point behind Freiburg. We do have a plus 17 goal differential. Freiburg has a minus 2 goal differential, which is huge, really, really in our favor there. And then they play Frankfurt, who's in 3rd on 57 points. So, I mean, we got to win. And I know there's a few different scenarios, but mainly like we just got to take care of business and win. We do have to keep an eye on that Frankfurt-Freiburg match. But do you have any thoughts on their matchup and how that could play out?
Yeah, it looks like the scenarios are if we win our home game against Kiel and Freiburg doesn't beat Frankfurt, we win our home game against Kiel by 2 goals and Freiburg beats Frankfurt, or we draw our home game against Kiel and Freiburg loses to Frankfurt. So there are a few different scenarios here, even if we don't win, which is pretty interesting. Holstein Kiel have been picking up some form towards the end of the season. I know Chad mentioned earlier in this episode that we shouldn't be underestimating them. They did tie against Leipzig. They did beat Gladbach, and they have beat Augsburg just in the last few weeks, and barely lost to Freiburg too most recently. So they've been trying to finish the season strong despite being in a relegation spot. They have their fate sealed at this point, but they could still come out strong. There's been times in the past where relegation sides have done that to us, even at home. So, and everyone's in good form, and Kovac with having his killer mentality, and I think this is going to be a no-brainer. It should be a no-brainer, and I'm hoping we walk out of there with 3 points and hopefully celebrating a 4th place finish.
Yeah, the Freiburg is in really, I want to say they're in pretty good form right now, which is the scary thing. Like ideally we need them to lose, right? Because I'm just trying to play out the scenarios. I'm just trying to look at like Frankfurt's form and Freiburg's form. Like they both have a lot to play for. They're both currently in Champions League, and we're the ones in 5th. So, but they're also trying not to drop out. Like it's I don't know. Freiburg's So they beat Holstein Kiel in their last match. Then they drew Leverkusen. They beat Wolfsburg, beat Hoffenheim, beat Gladbach. Frankfurt.
Ever since our win against them, look, they've picked up
Yeah.
results in all 5 games. They've really turned it on. Which again goes to show you that Dortmund have been a pretty solid. They beat a very solid Freiburg. You know what I mean? That was also an away game.
And then Frankfurt tied St. Pauli in their last match, tied Mainz in their last match. They beat Leipzig 4-0, then drew Augsburg 0-0. They also lost to Tottenham in the Europa League semifinal. So they're not in as good form, but we know they're a good team. Yeah, I don't know. It's just so, I don't know. I hate it. I'm already stressed. I'm just stressed thinking about it. We just got to win. Just got to win.
Kovac is at the wheel.
And we need someone else at the Freiburg wheel to crash it. Not wishing violence on anyone.
We have, yeah. I know we're missing a few players here, but for the most part, everyone is in good health. Everyone's been finding some really solid form. This should be enough quality to overwhelm a side like Kiel early on, again, at home.
Do you have... Well, I guess before we talk score predictions or anything, obviously it's the final match day of the season. I know there's going to be a lot of people hanging out and watching across the country and across everywhere. Do you have plans, Carver, for Amsterdam? And how was Amsterdam a couple matches ago?
I don't know if I do, to be honest with you. It's an 8:31, so I might just be watching at home unless I hear otherwise going on forward. And the tavern was great. Yeah, I hooked up with Brooklyn, actually. Chris, I don't want to say his last name. I'll just say Chris, that I met. Is a very nice person. He was fun to hang out with. And yeah, it was great. It was great as always. Yeah, it was a shitty day outside, really shit weather, which sucks because when people visit here, I'm always like, the best parts about the city are outdoors. Lots of things that you spend days outdoors here, and wasn't much to do there, but yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, if there's watch parties going on this weekend, we'll be sharing them on our socials, in our Discord. If you have a watch party that you're going to or attending, let us know, whether it's in the chat or if you want to hit us up on our Discord or socials. All those links can be found in the description of this episode. If you need a place to watch, and I say we'll be sharing all of them, because if you have not been to, if you're not part of a BVB supporters group, you need help finding one near you, or you want to find some people to connect with. I told the story a couple weeks ago, but there's now I don't know if they're officially sanctioned yet, but they're pretty official because they've had a couple meetups. Is it BVB Music City in Nashville? A couple guys from Nashville who linked up in our Discord and got that group going, which is really cool to see. So we will help you connect with people, or you can meet other Dortmund fans. It's kind of the whole point of this show and the point of our Discord. So I can't plug our Discord enough, because also I'm not on social as much anymore, except for my job. But in other ways, I'm not on it as much.
Yeah. I'm just on it for my full-time job, is all. Score predictions, Jacob?
I think 3-0. I think it's going to be...
I'm hoping so.
I think it's just going to be a party, celebration, and then just eagerly just eagerly stress watching, keeping our eyes on that other match.
Deja vu of 2 years ago, almost to the
God,
day.
What a horrible day. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a party, man, at home.
This one's not as big of a party. I mean, it is,
of course.
But
of course. God. No, it's not even close. And it's against a much worse side, which is why I'm going with a 3-1. I'm not quite sure how we will concede the goal, but I just think it will happen. But I think it's still going to be pretty tucked away here. Nothing to worry about.
Do you have any predictions for the Frankfurt-Freiburg match?
I think I'm going to go with a draw. Both sides are going to continue to go for it, but...
That's what I'm thinking. It's going to be I feel like that game can be so
like
entertaining.
2-2 or something, you know?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. It's going to be really entertaining. And if that's the case, that works out for us. If our predictions hold, Freiburg would be on 55 points. We would move up to 57 points and sit just behind Frankfurt in that fourth position.
I see a few other dubs predicted in the chat here, so...
Oh, man, I've been missing all this. Sorry, guys.
No, you're good.
Gersi
hat trick, yeah.
Hat trick. I don't know.
Feed like families. That's funny. Good stuff.
Carver, before we go, quick, I know I already shot down any transfer talk, but I do want to talk a little bit. I'm not going to get into everything. I know we've been linked with so many people lately. Like I pulled up BVB news blog before we did the show, and there's way too many things to talk about, way too many connections, because Dortmund's looking at everybody as they should be. But a lot, like news coming from a lot of reputable sources, journalists that I like to follow and trust, and not just Bild. And they've basically been saying like Dortmund are monitoring this player from Copenhagen and this player from wherever and whatever. And who knows? Like, yeah, that you can monitor and scout so many people. But the one I want to talk about, because just a quick overview. Let's pull up Twitter right now. And this came from Patrick Berger. Borussia Dortmund transfer targets for the summer are a box-to-box player. Joe Bellingham is the number one transfer target. A number 10 with Ryan Cherokee, who we talked about multiple times, is still on the list. A center back who can also play on the left, and a Girassi backup. But mainly, I want to talk about Joe Bellingham. And I don't know if you had any thoughts on him or any thoughts on those specific targets. Like, obviously, there's been a ton of players that we're linked with and that we're looking at, but those specific positions, and then any thoughts on Joe. I had a few that I'll hit on, but I want to get your thoughts first.
Well, the number one priority should be, if we're playing in this system, a number 8. Box to box would be pretty ideal, to be partnering with whoever's going to be that secondary pivot in the system going forward. I think Job could be a solid signing for that. He has been playing very well in the championship. The price now at minimum is looking at 25, if I'm not wrong. So if we're not making Champions League, that's going to get pretty, it's a pretty decent sized chunk of our budget pretty quick. So I'm imagining it's probably going to be a Job or Cherokee kind of thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just imagining us going for one of those and then trying to fill some smaller holes around that. Either way, I think Job would be a solid signing, hopefully, if the price is right.
I know there was a lot of talk about Job in January and us trying to get him then. In my now that the the champion EFL championship season is wrapping up. So we're recording on Tuesday evening, and I've been watching the promotion playoffs, which Sunderland is in. That's who he currently plays for. I believe he's played like 40 games for him. Like, he's a consistent starter. Gotten a ton of game time with them. I think he has 4 goals and 3 assists, or maybe 4 and 4. But he is a top player for Sunderland at such a young age, and he has a lot of experience playing with them already in a really competitive league. My concern is, so Sunderland moved on. They won the semifinal. Spoiler alert, I'm sorry. They won the semifinal. They'll be playing the promotion playoff against Sheffield United.
You're just saying, like, if they get in the Premier League?
If they get to the Premier League, that's where I get more worried, because I think he is a player who wants to play Champions League. I think he's a player who obviously saw his brother succeed at Dortmund. I know there's a good connection with the Bellingham family and Borussia Dortmund, and I think we could give him that option and opportunity to play in the Champions League, maybe. Who knows?
But
like, that's
also,
where it gets...
Just also grow and mature as a footballer, too. I mean, that's what a lot of these young future stars are looking at. You know, there's a tangible path that has been proven multiple times for me to get regular minutes at an elite level without the pressure of the world on my shoulders. And I think that's pretty enticing for really any young talent. I think it depends also how serious Sunderland are going to be in the summer. They're going to be someone that's going to be spending well or splashing, because I feel like if the business doesn't go well, they could be a team that's going to be bungee jumping for a few years, you know? So maybe that it would be an opportunity for him to get out of there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's way too early to say. Like, I think he could be... I would love to see him come to Dortmund. Like, obviously, we've seen the success with Jude, and I think he could be a good fit. Like, it's a position we need and we want, and I'm glad that he's a number 1 target. I always worry about, like, these English players who come to the Bundesliga. Like, you've seen it done successfully, and then maybe you could argue that they struggle going back to England. But I see, if they have an opportunity to play in the Premier League, I see that being harder to draw them away. Even if Sunderland makes it, like, there's some big Fs. Like, Sheffield is a really good team. They won their aggregate score 6-0. Like, they're a good team. They finished the championship in 3rd, where Sunderland was, I think, maybe they were 4th or 5th. I don't remember exactly. But they get to the Premier League, and it could be tough for Sunderland. Like, do you want to play for a team who's just fighting at the bottom? Like, is there, like, if they make it, I think if they don't make it, there's a better chance for us to buy him. I also could see, like, wouldn't be surprised if Premier League clubs want to come in for him too, but then he'll probably wouldn't be guaranteed the game time that he could get at Dortmund. So I think things are in our favor a little bit, but it really comes down to, like, even where we end up. Like, if we get that Champions League spot, could be a big indicator, or if he has more draw from the Premier League. But I don't know. I'm glad he's a target. I just don't know how realistic it's going to be yet, and time will just tell. Probably learn more over the next week.
Yep, I was going to say, these next 14 days, we're going to start to hear a lot of news unravel.
And then we'll give some more transfer updates as we get them. Not going to get everything now, but I think that kind of wraps up the episode.
There's only one mission ahead, though, more than anything, and that's securing 4th.
Yeah, forget about freaking bringing players in. We got to win this freaking game on the weekend. Um, I would go to Amsterdam with you, but I'm unfortunately out of town this weekend. I've never had a good result at Amsterdam, except the Leipzig earlier this year. I was there for that. That was
Yeah,
maybe
that's a good one.
but it's mainly because I just have such strong memories of every Der Klassiker that I've watched at Amsterdam has not been good, and then Mainz 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
don't want to think about it. Not
Last
that
few haven't
Amsterdam
been bad.
isn't a great time.
No, I
I
know.
just have bad luck there, I feel.
I hear you.
No, but we appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. As always, join our Discord, connect with us on social, find the link to everything in the description of this episode. Big shout out to everyone in the chat who was watching live on the live stream. Carver apologizes for his technical mishaps earlier. I apologize for my voice crack.
Wreck.
If you don't know what we're talking about, we appreciate you listening to the edited podcast version later. We'll see you guys later.